Hi, this is Mark. Congratulations. You have found this amazingly awesome show. Chances are you're listening to it right now on whether it's iTunes or Stitcher Radio or some other mobile app that allows you to stream this amazingly awesome show to your ear holes. And I can't stress how awesomely amazing this show really is. But did you know that you can also catch the latest episode of this show on the Tangibound Network? That's right. Go check out tangiboundnetwork.com. You can look them up and you can listen to it right there. It's even mobile friendly. What more could you ask for? Which means you can pull it up on your iPhone or your Android, even your Windows phone. Yeah, who has one of those? But still, point remains, you can do it. You can do it. Check it out, tangiboundnetwork.com. Listen to this show, the latest episode, every time. Check it out.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Crazy Life. I'm Brian. Joining me as usual is Heno.
Hello.
And, in case you missed last week, no Jen for a few weeks here as she's got a lot going on in her life with the wedding and everything. But she'll hopefully be back sometime in October or so to regale us with tales of the month off or whatever.
Bachelorette partying.
Yeah, all that. Yeah, exactly. Just
some pretty good pictures there on Facebook and stuff.
Yep. Looks like she's having a good time with that, doing well as far as I know. So, I don't know where else to go here. Well, thanks to anyone who's a new listener or an old listener or whatever. If you're listening, thank you. Please, if you like what you hear in the episodes and stuff, please share links with your friends. And also, if you get a chance, swing over to iTunes and give us a review, rate, rate's the same thing, and make sure you're subscribed, because those things help us in iTunes algorithms so we can be found easier by other people. So
yeah, we had some nice little compliments on last week's show from some friends, and I just want to say thank you to you guys. You know who you are. Appreciate it immensely.
Yeah, me
it's
too.
Always, It's surprising sometimes, when I know this is why we do this, but still, it's surprising when someone says, "Hey, really liked, your show last week," or you really touched me, or whatever that is. And it's just like, oh man, that feels really good.
Right, it does. And to continue patting us on the back, I noticed that you and I both, as we received those compliments, both of us weren't like, oh no, we were both, we both were like, thank you, and whatever. So
you're right.
Yeah. Practicing what we've preached on here before.
Yeah.
It does. It always means a lot when you hear from people that they found something useful, or, maybe you're just in that mindset. Maybe they're in that mindset that we're in, or whatever. Yeah. I had somebody.
Yeah. You just.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying, you just relate a little.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had someone mention about, how we talked a lot of the creative stuff last week, and, how frustrating it can be. And I had somebody reach out and kind of, mention that to me, that it meant a whole lot, because, it's hard for, they said it's hard for them to explain it to people who aren't in the creative world,
Okay.
And I get that. It is, sometimes it's tough, even though a lot of the stuff everybody I think can relate to it, somewhere in your life, but it's nice to it is always, no matter what you're dealing with, if you're frustrated by something, it's kind of always nice to know you're not alone.
That's it.
My mom this week, actually, she read a book by a football player named Ben Utecht, and it's about his career in the NFL and concussions and all this kind of stuff. And my mom, had a head injury. She was working and an awning swung down and hit her in the side of the head. And she's dealt with, essentially, like post-concussion symptoms for years,
Mm-hmm.
And, like her reading that, it really, really reached her. And she's like, it's so nice. She's like, I've told people stuff for years and they didn't get it and they look at me weird. And she's like, I'm reading this and it's like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, it's always, it's nice to know that, first of all, it's nice to know you're not crazy, like that you're not making things up, that this is something that is, it's, real is a tough thing to say because, a lot of it is distorted and it is made up, but that's the problem is that, that's the things are made up. But with her, it was, for years people would, kind of, cause you don't see it with people. Like you look at somebody who has concussion issues and you just look at them and they look fine,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was nice that she found that, and I've told her, I was like, yeah, there's all sorts of stuff out there now. Of people coming forward with, hey, I've suffered from this and this and this because, especially with like the NFL and different sports now, it's become so prevalent that, the commissioner just made a comment from the NFL the other day about them pledging more money toward, concussion stuff and how they haven't done as well as they could have with it. And it's like, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So. So
yeah, was that related to any of the weekend games that they were talking about that I know a lot of people have been talking about?
I don't think it was. I think it was just in general. The timing was interesting though.
Yeah, it sure was.
Yeah, they did fine a couple of guys for blows to the head on Cam Newton. Yeah, and they should have because there was blatant hits to the head that just were not penalized in the game, and the NFL can't let those go. Not with all the eyes that are on them now. They have to do something about it. And, the players got fined. I forgot how much it was. It was $25,000 or something like that and whatever. And, but they have to do something because if they don't, you're going to have people going, you just said all this stuff and yet here's these that'll get replayed on ESPN and different news outlets, like over and over. And they're like, yeah, the NFL doesn't care. They do this, so. And, that's kind of a good thing because it's forcing them to not be able to sweep things under the rug as easily, because concussions are not something that should be swept under the rug for sure by anybody.
Yeah, especially now with all the research and everything they're trying to find out,
Yeah, exactly.
So many things.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of that kind of injury reminds me a lot of the difference between someone that is born diabetic and somebody who acquires it through their lifestyle choices.
Mm-hmm.
And you have people that have various, diseases, whatever it is, brain traumas, this kind of stuff that they, or they might be born with versus someone that they've volunteered for this.
Yeah.
And it's hard because I have a close friend who's she's a legit doctor, the whole deal. And she has diabetes, was born with diabetes, and there's nothing, and she's, really specialized in nutrition and that kind of stuff. And it really irks her when she finds out somebody got diabetes. It's like, you didn't have to.
Right. Cause she has no choice in the matter. She got
it.
Yeah.
It's bad. And it's like and the same thing with it's kind of hard to, it's already bad enough that people are born with, mental disorders and all these things that you struggle your whole life with. And then here someone ends up with something because, well, they chose to beat their heads in,
it's exactly. It's
a little tough.
It is. It is. I know. I've gone through that a lot too. And it's not just concussions, but you see it with others, any injuries, like when you see the players later in their lives, and they, and most of them are like, hey, I knew what I was getting myself into, and I knew I was going to have trouble walking because players before me had trouble walking and before them, and but it's or something. I mean, like, or you see, the wrestler Mick Foley. I watch him walking around. I think, and it's like, man, he's just awful. And I've heard him talk about how he's going to need a hip and knee. And actually, I think he needs both knees and a hip. And, and it's like, and he's, openly said, I would do everything exactly the same as I did it before, basically. And, it's amazing because, it takes a special kind of person to look at, hey, I'm going out and doing something that's putting myself in harm's way all the time, and I'm okay with that, because like me, if I took a hard hit from a football player, I'd probably be like, no, I'm good. I'm done. Yeah. That's it. I don't need any more of this. So yeah, it's always been tough for me to watch it and at the same time go, it's like, I think I told you, it's like I have issues with like MMA. Because as much as I love the sport and I love the competitive nature and all the stuff, I'm still watching two guys inflicting harm on each other, and that some of that leads to stuff down the road that's not good, especially the brain stuff. Like if you want to throw yourself in the fighting and have bad knees later, that sucks too. But
that's to me that's just different.
Yeah, but a lot of people think that there's a lot of money in stuff like the MMA. And a great example would be this past weekend. You had a guy who used to be a pro wrestler named CM Punk fought his first fight against a guy named Mickey Gall. And
how'd that go?
Gall was dominant.
Okay, that's what
basically
predicted.
What happened was Gall took his legs and got his back and submitted him. And
that was it.
Yeah, it just quickly. And it wasn't. Yeah, it was pretty dominant. And the thing is, usually when you're going to enter combat sports, you don't immediately go on a pay-per-view card. You usually work your way up to kind of that level. Like you toil around in like the, smaller promotions and against whatever. And you work, you fight guys that are in your talent pool and you work your way up as you succeed or whatever. And CM Punk, because, he'd be stupid to turn it down, but UFC was like, hey, there's money to be made here. Do you want to fight with us? So, realistically, he didn't have a shot. Like, that's kind of the way most people looked at it, was like, if he had done anything remotely impressive, people would have been like, wow. Because even though most people have never really heard of Mickey Gall, it's still kind of an amateur walking in fighting a guy who's been a pro for years. Yeah. And, but when you look at the payout on it, CM Punk made $500,000 for the fight. That's a good payday, right? Mickey Gall made, I forgot what it is. Shoot, I can't remember now. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick while we're
So he made a fraction because he doesn't have a name?
Yeah, exactly. And it shouldn't be that way. He should get, I think they get bonuses for, what do you call it, for winning and stuff like that. But it's still the idea that it's nowhere near, like to put that in perspective also. Shoot, I can't.
So it's still a popularity contest as far as the payday goes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Here we go. Mickey Gall took home $30,000. CM Punk took home $500,000. Oh, shoot.
UFC 203 is in the books, and the UFC's debut in Cleveland was a smashing success,
sucks.
Especially.
There we go. It wouldn't let me mute it. Anywho, sorry about that, folks.
Both of these conversations lead me to a topic that is. I guess I can sound kind of
really quick before you get into because I'm fine transitioning off of this anyway. But I just here's one more thing, which is Stipe Miocic, who's the heavyweight champion. Miocic earned a flat $600,000. He's the heavyweight champion. He earned $600,000. The guy he beat, who was the guy challenging for the title, made $800,000. And CM Punk as a brand new guy walking in, and again, I know he's worth it because people would buy the pay-per-view to see him.
Exactly.
But at the same time, it's like, the dude he got his butt whooped by made not even the 10% of what he made.
Yeah.
Hell, it wasn't even 5%. It was what, just over 5% of his, it's like, that's horrible. I've just never felt like you should, the guy losing should just never make more than the guy or that won,
Yeah.
But here we are. Boxing's been that way for years too. Floyd Mayweather fights in a fight. He makes massive money. Whoever he fights will make nowhere near what he makes. Even in the, the Pacquiao Mayweather fight, Mayweather made way more money. So anyway.
Yeah. But once again, you don't get into that ring in boxing unless you've proven yourself.
Yes.
Your name's not going to get you in there.
No, exactly. Yeah.
In those types, that sport.
Not unless they want to prove a point. Like if somebody from like the NFL was like, boxers are soft, I could get in there and whatever, they'd probably be like, come on in. Cause UFC did that a few years ago. There was a boxer who said he could step in there and hang, and he certainly couldn't, but, cause it's a different beast.
So this always just reminds me of also people that go jump off of stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it's a wingsuit or whatever it is, and get themselves killed.
Yeah.
And leave behind, a wife and a child or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And yes, we all have a choice in our life, but how freaking big is your ego?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's the part, it's like, I'm going to go in the ring and get my head bashed in so that, someday when, my son grows up, he can put the sippy cup up to my mouth.
Yeah. It's so tough because it's done with the intent of, making the money to provide. But in the end, it's like you're sacrificing the long term for the short term. Like you might set your family up great for 10 years, but unless you really get into that. And again, I just named, and those guys fighting for UFC are fairly well known guys. And I named those amounts of monies, and those are the like top guys making that.
Yeah.
That's good money, I guess. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not like they're doing it for millions of dollars. And I think a lot of people have that mentality that these guys are just raking cash in. And as I prove with, especially Mickey Gall there, they're not necessarily.
No. And it's not like they they might have some sponsors and this and that, but they're not, that's sponsorship like, jet ski racer sponsorship. It's a niche market.
Right. Unless you're a very top guy. And even then, I don't know how cause they used to let the guys put all the advertising on their trunks and stuff now. Now they don't, cause they all wear Reebok gear now and they get a cut of what is sold with their name on it. And, cause for a while, like John Jones, was sponsored by Nike and, Nike was paying through the nose for that sponsorship probably because, not through the nose, but in context through the nose. Like they were probably paying him a pretty good chunk of money, like Brock Lesnar has a Jimmy John's, sponsorship that he's actually been allowed to carry into the WWE and he still wears on his trunks. So guys like you, but you've got to be that level of name to get those kind of sponsorships. Like you said, normally it's, Bob's Bait and Tackle or whatever. And, it's probably not a very lucrative.
Sock guy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is these guys have to pay people for their camps. These guys don't go do the camps for free. So how many, you got to pay your coaches, other, sparring partners and all this. And, like, that $300,000 or $500,000 all of a sudden isn't so much money, especially, I can't imagine Mickey Gall splitting $30,000. Like how do you pay your guys off of that? It's
after taxes.
Also that. Yeah.
It's not like you're an employee.
Right. No, you're independent contractors. I would think or something to that effect. Yeah. So I know people listening are like, this isn't normally what we're talking about on this show. Why are they talking MMA on here? But yeah, that's what kind of I think the overall thing is. It's just like the money for what you gain from it. To me, it's not worth it. But that's why I'm not an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
I guess if I thought it was worth it, I would be maybe. Not at my
That's why,
age.
like when you say, "Okay, would you go back and do it all over again?" There's a few things I wouldn't go back and do, and I didn't do anything. I've never done anything that extreme.
Right.
yes, I did do an extreme sport, but it was only extreme in as much as how much money and how many hours I dumped into it to be competitive.
Right. It also helps if you are one of the top at your game. Again, like I mentioned, Mick Foley. Mick Foley was a very big name for WWE during a very lucrative period. You know, during the 90s, they referred to it as the Attitude Era. They made because that's when The Rock and Stone Cold were at their peak. So there was a lot of money coming into the WWE. So guys got big paydays, you know. Now, from what I understand, they don't make anywhere near as much money. And even though that stuff is, you know, like the outcome is predetermined, they still get hurt a lot, you know. And those guys down the road are going to be a mess. And a lot of the newer guys like to jump off the top rope more than they used to. So you're going to have knee and, you know, joint issues and feet issues and all that down the road there. And again, it's like, how much are you making? Was it really worth it? I don't know. It's, you know, I guess.
Yeah.
The ones you always question are always the ones that are like the guys who are wrestling in like, you know, VFW lodges and gyms and, you know, where they're making like $50 a night. You know, when you start out, that's what you got to do. But eventually it's you know, it's like, I don't know. I wonder if enough guys give themselves that, hey, if I haven't made it by this point, I should probably stop. You know?
Yeah. And you know what? This kind of ties into, you know, especially for me being past technically midlife crisis.
And me being kind of in the middle of midlife crisis.
Yeah. It's all right. So I pursued a few, whatever you want to call them, bucket lists or, you know, endeavors, whatever you want to call it. I've pursued a couple significant ones that allow me at this time in my life to say I'm good. And I know that me saying that can't take away somebody who feels like, oh, I haven't achieved anything yet in my life. Mm-hmm. You know, oh, I haven't done anything exciting. Oh, there's still something in my plate. And I'm looking at them going, I think your life is awesome. Yeah. Because I see relative stability. I see somebody that maybe really prioritizes their family and I don't just mean your children. I just mean family.
Yeah,
maybe
right.
It's your parents or whatever it is. But I see qualities in people that I don't think they see in themselves how valuable it is. It's like they have qualities that I wish I had.
Yes.
I had to do all this stuff because I wasn't balanced. I wasn't very secure. You know, it was like my insecurity when I was younger had a lot to do with I am my accomplishments. If I accomplish, I'm worth something.
And that's, I think, right where I'm at is I think I'm finally coming through that because I did the same thing. Like I would for a while, like, well, you know, while I was working in places, it was about, I have to get into, I want to be a manager because I want that title. That way I can say I'm the manager or I'm, you know, and it wasn't a power trip. It was just this is how I'm identified. Or like I think I mentioned last week, I identify I'm an artist. I have to be an artist. Yeah. I have to be an artist, you know. Yep. And then, you know, me and Tony owning a business, you know, it's like, well, we own our own business. We're the owners, the shopkeepers, you know, whatever. And I think it's the same thing. And then once all that kind of was by the wayside and I was unemployed, you know, I spent more than a year helping take care of my dad. You know, he had terminal lung cancer. But then once I emerged from that point, I was like,
yeah, now what?
I don't have anything. And that's what put me into a real funk, that whole area. And now I'm finally like, you don't have to be, you're not measured by a job or, you know, your possessions or that, you know, it's like I've always known that, but you know, it's like, it's finally really clicking that it's like, I'm great as I am, you know, and it's like these things can add to that. Like they can make, you know, but it's not, you don't have to be those things to be, you know, I'm realizing I don't, like I said last week, I don't have to be an artist to be a success as a person. You know, it's no longer on the table for me. If it happens, great, but it's not a mandatory thing, you know?
Yeah. And like I was saying, it's easy for me to say some of that stuff because I did get an opportunity to, check a few boxes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that part where, if somebody says, well, you don't understand what it's like, I'm like, okay, I guess I don't, in a way, but I was listening to a podcast today. Once again, I'm into this, music recording stuff, and somebody said something that tied kind of into this, which is, and this is something I didn't get when I was in my 20s, and I didn't get at various times. It slowly happened with maturity, but the host always asks, can you give everybody a word of advice or something? And he brought up something that, a mentor of his had said, and pardon the language, but he basically said, don't be a dick. And it was that simple.
That's really how I try to live my life. That is truly the golden rule. It really is.
Make t-shirts with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and that's what they talked about is like and this was his thing, and it's funny how something that simple can just resonate and sink in.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, how many times did I achieve my goals at and I did not accomplish that one simple sentence.
Yeah. That's so true. You may have done great at this, but you were a jerk along the way. Yeah.
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 And so now I think back on a lot of those experiences and I go, they're not really, a lot of them aren't happy memories for me.
Yep.
And yeah, a lot of it has to do with, alcoholism and also being in a funk.
Mm-hmm.
When you're just negative or you're down on everything and you treated somebody poorly and that kind of thing. And nowadays I sit there and I go, what makes this life worthwhile? And I've said it on this program a million times is if I feel like I'm a decent human being, that's accomplishment now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not about leaving a legacy or is my name going to be somewhere? It's like, I just want whoever comes up to my, whatever it is, memorial or something and just goes, that was a decent dude.
Yeah. So I always said, I live my life for, I saw a thing a long time ago. And again, I'm not an overtly religious person by any means, but, it was this thing called the clown's prayer. And it basically, in summation, it's like, in my life, I want to leave more people laughing than crying kind of a thing. Yeah. And I've always loved that.
Love that.
And it's like, to me,
love that.
Like my ultimate goal in life is I want a long line at my funeral. Not people going, finally, but, like people, like I said, it's one of the things that when my dad died.
To pay respect.
Yeah. Well, it blew my mind how, growing up, my dad always seemed to know everybody. Everywhere we went, he ran into somebody he knew, kind of a thing. And then when he died, we were at the funeral home for the showing, and it was just this steady, constant stream of people all day for 2 days. And I was obviously I'm numb through the process anyway, but it was just mind blowing. And I'm like, I don't know most of these people. And when they find out I'm his son, cause a lot of them knew him before I was born, and, he was such a good guy. And again, most people aren't gonna be like that son of a, but it's still the idea. You could tell these weren't people just giving niceties. They were like, wow, this sucks. He was a really good dude, kind of a thing. Yeah. And you could just tell. And it blew my mind. And I was like, I didn't even know my dad knew or touched all of these people's lives. And it's like, that's when you step back and you go, I was always proud to be his kid anyway, but it's like one of those moments where it's like, man, he did it, he lived it right. Like he did, like, this is what I want. And it isn't about the recognition. It's just like, when I'm dead, I want people to remember me like this, that for being a really good guy or for helping and being a good friend or whatever. And that's all I heard all day. These stories about how he helped people out when they didn't have this or that, or he did stuff for other people, or he made things right if he this, it's just all day of it. And it was just, it was great, even though it was such an awful, awful time for me, So like you said, that's how I think you won't know that because you'll be dead, but essentially that's what that's my goal in life is that's what I want is so, I think, and the thing is, I don't think it's that hard really to be on that path, but generally you do have to go through the fight with your ego to get to this point, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
and your insecurities and everything else, you know, and I'm looking at that with music right now. And you know, just a follow up from last week, I sat down a few days later with this song and I freaking nailed it. I nailed it. I mean, it was just, I sat down and I'm like, there it is. I have nothing to beat myself up over anymore.
It's amazing how that happens sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you just crush yourself for a while and then, you know, you maybe whatever, you talk it out, take a step away, whatever it is you need to do at the time. And then the next time you step in and things kind of just come to, it's almost like you removed, like, cause by getting that negativity out of you, maybe you remove the roadblock in the process, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. And from there, I was then inspired to get back into it and do more. And I'm like, okay, this is going well. This is good. I like this. This is great. And it kind of reminds me of, you know, early on when you do something artistic, you have to put in those 10,000 hours.
Yeah. Right.
You know, you have to put those in. You have to put the hours in. And a lot of us, our motivation for doing it is a little bit of fame. Who doesn't want to make a career out of it? Who doesn't want to be famous or popular or whatever it is?
Yep. Definitely.
You know, it's a great motivator. But unfortunately comes with anti of that slogan where you're not being a very nice person sometimes because your drive and your ego and all that stuff starts to get built up and it starts to flex its muscles a little bit.
Yeah. There's maybe nothing worse than someone who experiences moderate success. You know, sometimes, not always. Sometimes it's just like they're insufferable and it's like, you're still nobody. Like, you know, like not to be a jerk about it, but it's like, you're still in the grand scheme. You're still a small fish. You're not a big fish. You're just a little bit, you know, you're not even a medium fish. You're just a little bigger, you know?
Yeah. And a lot of us will force things. We'll make it happen. We'll try to control outcomes. We'll flat out get in our own way and wonder why we're not getting anywhere. And that really resonated with me this week when I heard somebody say that. I'm like, who famous for that? Getting in my own way.
Yeah.
You know, and so I was thinking of that, like, okay, where am I now? Well, I don't need that stuff. I love sitting down doing a podcast just for the experience of it.
Yep.
I don't care where it goes. I love doing music for the experience of it. Maybe something will happen of it. I still have that thought. Who doesn't? But I'm not counting on it. It's now something I get to do in my life, and at the same time, work on being a better person. Work on the other, finding satisfaction in the carrying of the water and the chopping of the wood.
Yeah.
Rather than the who's looking at me.
Right.
And I think that a lot of that happened with just me sitting down trying to do this song. It was I have to do this for whatever pressures, whatever reasons made me want to do it. And when I finally broke down to it and love this line, I'll always use it. I was beaten down to a state of reasonableness. And I suddenly went, what does it matter? And then look what happens. I have a little breakthrough.
Yep.
And the great thing about it is, even after that breakthrough, I didn't start obsessing again. I went to Atlanta this last weekend and went and had a little getaway, got out of town.
Yep.
Didn't do anything special there. Did get to eat some decent food, but basically just did what I do at home.
Yeah.
But just did it somewhere else.
Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. And it's amazing how much something like that changes your life sometimes. Even though, like you said, it's the exact same thing you'd be doing at home. Pretty much anywhere I go at some point, I'm doing the exact same thing I'd be doing at home, sitting somewhere looking at the internet or whatever. And it's just like doing
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, but it's a different location. It's why, to kind of spin that's why, like, my therapist pointed out that, like, when you wake up and you're depressed, move into a chair or another room, because even though you're doing the same thing, you just sit and whatever, like, even if you just sit and stare at the wall instead of laying and staring at the ceiling, you've moved it. And sometimes that change of scenery will encourage, other change. So, it's just a good technique to use no matter what.
Yeah. And when I came back. Sure, I because I'm listening to music and I'm listening to podcasts and while I'm traveling, and so I'm getting inspired. But I get back and I'm like, well, this week I'm not going to be able to get to it. It's going to be a busy week, but the weekend will come and I can get back into doing some stuff. I did a little song, for another show the other night, just real quick and easy. And I just realized that once again, that reminder, I need to be reminded of why I do the things I do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do these things because I enjoy them, because they bring me some satisfaction in the process, that I feel good about the end results. That like if some total just not impressive human being came up to me and said, I'm going to give you this much money to record me. And I listened to what they had, and I was just like, oh, this is horrible. And you're got a horrible attitude. I'd like to say that, you know what? I'll go find somebody that doesn't have any way of recording music, but they're actually a decent person, and I'll do their thing pro bono.
Yeah, I get you.
Rather than take the money from you, kind of thing. I'm going, okay, what's important here? It's okay, I can make some cash, or maybe I could get associated with a big name.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it anymore.
Yeah.
And
again, there's that difference in essentially youth to maturity, because when you're young, it's like you said before, you're fame chasing a lot of times. Like, hell, I'm in art school, and I was like, for a while, I was like, I want to be a comic book artist. And it's like, I want to be like this person, I want to see my name on, Spider-Man or whatever, I want to, that kind of thing. And it's like, as you get, it's one of those, like, this probably sounds more negative than I mean it to be, but essentially, life kind of beats aspirations out of you a little bit,
It does, yeah.
And I don't mean that to be like, oh, don't bother trying, none of that, but it's like, windows close. Like, it happens. As a musician, I'm sure there was a certain point where you were like, we're probably not going past this point. To some extent. Yeah. I think I hit that, I think most creative people at some point in the process, you usually, and that's, that's where, your ego, as you get older, your ego kind of, if you don't experience blowing up or whatever, I think your ego kind of shrinks, and then you're like, you know what? It's not about this anymore. And there's a lot of people that are like musicians that'll play smaller clubs around town, and they'll just play forever, and they're perfectly happy with it. Would they still like to maybe have, a recording contract and tour? Yeah, sure, maybe. But at the same time, maybe they also don't want to be away, like you said earlier, they don't want to be from the things that make their life great at this point, like their families and, different stuff, so it's, it's really interesting to me, because it ends up being almost sad sometimes when you see somebody that's well on and they just won't, and it isn't like that they should give up, but at some point you're just like, they also don't recognize where they are.
Yeah.
And
that's, and I have a guy that I played music with a long time ago, and he was a good singer, good performer.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, he's built like a football player. So it's like, dude, the long hair and the makeup, whoo. But fun guy, played guitar and all this, but he was one of those types that was either the party boy, or now I need to hunker down and do what I'm supposed to do, kind of thing. And he went into, he got married, and I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get my degree. I'm going to become, a productive human now. I'm no longer a rocker.
Right.
Well, I look at him now, and he's got 2 wonderful kids, and he's got in this bedroom a little mini Marshall stack and pedals and guitars and all this stuff.
Mm.
And he still actually has some equipment in his garage. So even though he went into the quote unquote straight lifestyle, he never let go of the music.
Yeah. And that's, I think the thing is, it's like at some point you realize that fame is a young person's game most of the time. It really is. If you're going to become famous, you're generally not becoming famous at age 50, or something like that. It can happen. I'm not saying these things can't, but it's just like when you look at things like in fields make a difference. An artist can kind of come out of nowhere because maybe they've switched as they've worked through things, and by an artist, I mean anybody in the creative field. I don't mean like a fine artist, but it's like a musician. Maybe for years and years, you're doing country music, and then all of a sudden you start writing, or maybe you were doing rock and then you start writing country songs, and all of a sudden maybe you start getting a little bit of a following because maybe you're actually a better storyteller and this is the better vessel, and maybe just the rock lifestyle isn't what, it should be, or as a fine artist, you run into, I've seen so many artists that I admire, and the ones I always admire are those ones that they alter their style sometimes as they change as a person, their style changes. And you look at them and go, they're the artist I want to really be like. If you're famous along the way, cool. But if not, that's also cool because they're exploring new things. They're trying things out and they're really trying to find their voice, and sometimes once they find their voice, you see sometimes people they're monotone at that point, and it's like, I just like the idea. It feels like the other is more of a rewarding thing as a creative person, because the most mind-numbing job you could think of as, like, when I'm in school for graphic design, there were all sorts of people I knew from, local schools that worked for, like, Kinko's, because they had a desktop publishing area, and almost every one of those people there were a graphic design student. You don't want to do that job because it's awful. It's like people that don't have a clue what they really want. They come in, they expect you to do this and this, but then when you do it, they're like, oh no, I don't really want you to put your creativity into it. I want, it's like, oh, that box. You don't want to be in that box. You want to be able to grow and expand yourself. And, so I don't know. It's great when you see somebody who, like you said, he gave up the dream kind of being, a big time rock star or whatever, but he didn't give up his music.
No, and I love that. And, and he's not going to have a midlife crisis because of that.
Right.
He's not going to suddenly be like, oh, what have I done for the last 20 years?
Yeah.
I need the band's got to get back together, dude.
Yeah. Honey, I love you, but the road's calling me. It's
seriously.
It's like, what? Like you have 3 kids, a mortgage, and a minivan. Yeah. What are you going to go be a big rock star?
You just hear the upside the head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go back and sit down and watch TV.
Yeah.
Go to your room.
Yeah. But you see it. There's stories of people doing crazy stuff all the time like that. And it's like, no, stop it. Look at what you're doing, man. Yeah. Like, no matter how great the road is and the rock star lifestyle at that point is, you've made the wrong choice. Because it's probably not calling you. It's probably either a drunk dial or a butt dial. It probably really wasn't calling you,
Great analogy. It is a great analogy. That's like the whole thing. Yeah. Like I hear people say, my higher power told me. It's like, no, that was your butt dial power.
Yeah.
Believe me, that didn't come from a higher place.
Yeah. It's why I said
it came from somewhere famunda.
Right. Yeah, for sure. It's like, like I said, I'm not trying to dump on anybody who chases their dream. Get after it. If you have the opportunity, you see like a show like, America's Got Talent or The Voice or whatever, and you see people in their like 50s and 60s that have put off their career. And they're like, hey, I want to go give this get after it. Go for it.
Love it.
It's great when life affords you those opportunities. That's cool, because a lot of times you kind of have to make the responsible decisions. You have to,
And hey, sometimes those people, if you listen to their stories, there was a conversation maybe with their husband or wife.
Yeah.
There was a conversation with, whatever their employer. And everyone said, you know what, we think you should go for it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Well, that's a person that wasn't being a
jerk. A jerk.
Yeah. Let's use jerk. Perfect. He wasn't, because it's inclusive.
Yep.
Because unfortunately, when the ego gets involved, we suddenly become, a panay, and that's about it. It's like, and that's where it's funny how I've just had this last week or so has been this reminder of, for me at least, is what's important here. Let's be always reminded of something a friend of mine says all the time is be the right size for the situation.
Yeah, that's
right
smart,
sized for the situation. And I have a tendency to be wrong sized way too often.
Right.
And I spill over onto everybody else and they're like, whoa, and when I pull it back and I'm actually the right size, it feels pretty good.
Yeah. Right.
Life is good. Someone says, how are you doing today? And I'm like, great,
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you remember a while ago, I mentioned that, one of the things that I had thought about in, like when you learn about reframing things, like I'm the type that what I did when I was really kind of looking at reframing was taking that step back and being really aware of kind of how I reply to things, how I do kind of everything mannerism wise, like how so I've tried really hard. Like now, like you were just saying, when someone says, how are you doing? And it's good, whatever. It's like, I've always been a not bad or person, and I've tried so hard over the last year-ish time to become at least go, pretty good. Like not bad became pretty good. And in the end, I mean the exact same thing. And it's just small talk, but again, it's a little reframe that, if you do that wherever you can across the board, it's like, okay, across the board, I've turned everything up a notch to positive. I've turned it from negative to positive on all these little things. Build on that, doing those little, baby steps. And it's funny because I've caught myself more often than not now to where I don't say not bad as much. I say pretty good, way more, or I'm doing well, or, whatever, that kind of thing. And I'm really proud of the fact that I've done that because it's such a minor thing, but it's also a major thing. Like if I catch myself saying, not bad, I'm usually like, I almost immediately in my head, there's like a noise that, or like you snap your fingers or something. And it's just like, whoa, are you doing bad today? Are you doing not well today? 'Cause if so, why? Like, it's like, is this a moment that I need to stop? Is this potentially the beginning of a spiral, or is this whatever? Or are you just not telling the truth here? Are you, distorting the truth? And that's why it's like, if I catch myself, there's times where I've actually corrected myself. Like I'll say, not bad. And they'll be like, I'm doing well. Like immediately flip it. And again, it's just that repetition so that I try to get at least one bit of negativity out of my vocabulary. Like just, I'm done with this. I don't want to answer that way anymore unless it's the truth. If it's, I'm not doing well, then answer that way, Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, like I said, kind of in the same, it's such an important step, I think, just anytime you can. My therapist mentioned this to me too. It's like anytime you can in your conversations, if you can not use a negative term and use a more positive one, you'll feel the difference over time, so.
That's a great tip.
And it's really easy to do. It seems very neurotic until it becomes second nature.
Yeah, well, that's the old fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Yeah, because you really feel like you're analyzing every little thing you say because you are. And, but I think you kind of, it's like editing. It really, it's like editing a paper or something. You have to fine tooth comb everything at some point and go, all right, this is, now this is acceptable,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So how's your week been?
Not bad. No.
Yeah.
It's actually, it's really non-eventful, like nothing's really happened. I got like tomorrow's my birthday and, I bought myself, thank you. I bought myself a birthday present, which was, you're familiar with or have you seen the Banksy art where it's like the person throwing the like flower pot? I think it is, instead of, like a grenade or whatever. And,
yes,
it's been kind of redone to death by pop culture shirt sites, but there was one that it's like Adam West is Batman and he's got like the gigantic bomb in his hand, like his arm back, and they had that shirt on ripped tees, and I was like, man, I gotta have that shirt because I love the Adam West Batman series. And then, that too. I just really dug the shirt. And it's oddly enough, it's the second shirt I have with that theme because the other is from Monty Python, The Holy Grail. It's when King Arthur's throwing the holy hand grenade. Yep. So, but anyway, I saw the shirt and I was like, I gotta have that. And it came today and, I was all like, cause it's something I really dig. And, it's weird though. It's like, I'll be 38 tomorrow and I am not a person who I don't care about age. Like being 38 means nothing to me. I'll feel the same tomorrow as I did today, basically. Like I'm not gonna all of a sudden, oh man, I feel whoo, know. But it's so it's just weird. How birthdays. I'm at that point that birthdays are cool, but meh. Like they're not. There's no milestones in front of me for a long time. When you're younger, there's all those milestones. So you get excited about, you're 20. It's like, I turned 21 this year. I can go drink or, whatever, or when you turn 18 or 16 or, all these things. And, 25, I can rent a car out of state. But, it's like at 38, it's like, like, all right. It's kind of a, no big deal. But it's weird because birthdays they used to be a point of negativity kind of to me though. Mm-hmm. And my core group of friends they always are great about birthdays. We always go out and celebrate and we, always make sure we contact one another and hey, happy birthday. At least, you get that stuff out of the way. And my family does that too. But it's so weird how I don't know. It's almost like the letdown of, it's kind of like as I got older and it's like, there's no like real up point to it. And that's kind of a letdown, and for a few years that bugged me, a little bit that there's no, you're a kid, you get gifts. There's a big party for you. There's all the hoopla. And then as you get older, it's like there's less hoopla and less people and you don't get as many gifts and you're lucky if you get phone calls. And luckily there's social media. So now Twitter and Facebook both are like, hey, it's this person's birthday. And now you get a ton of them again.
Light them up.
Yeah. Whereas for years it was like, oh, you're 27. Oh, well. So it's kind of weird how, I'm past that point to where I'm very appreciative when people do remember, at this point now. And it's kind of an interesting thing how for a while it was just such a letdown because there was no more, it's almost, it was my ego being let down that it wasn't a big deal, wasn't being made about me, Gotcha. I mean, really, like to just call it what it is. That's exactly what it was, is my ego was like, hey, come on. And I think part of that kind of fed into my depression a little bit at times too, because it was like, oh, well, no one cares about you, or, oh, you only have like 4 people that care about you, or, when it's not the truth. It's like the truth of it is everybody goes through this. We all do. Like I said, the pomp and circumstances go away, to some extent, unless, there's someone who keeps it going in your life or whatever, and it's just like, but a lot of people, a birthday is just a birthday. It's just another day.
Just another day.
Get up, you go to work, it's like, I worked on almost, when I was working, I worked on almost every one of my birthdays. So, that was never a big deal to me. So I don't know. It's like I said, it's a strange thing to kind of look at and, but I'm not that way this year. I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's a birthday, but it's weird because that feels like growth, even though it also feels, it almost feels like a recession, but it also feels like growth, So I don't know if I explained that well enough. I sure as heck explained it for long enough.
I totally get it though, because it's anniversaries are great moments of reflection, and they're also good times to. All right, so I know some people that make some big deals out of birthdays to the point where I'm just like, all right, give me a freaking break.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, I know you want to express how much you love your partner or whatever it is, but it's like, once again, it's like, what's more important here? The opportunity to reflect and kind of say, hey, what's different now than it was before?
Mm-hmm.
Am I moving forward? Am I falling back? Whatever. Or is it all just going to be a giant retail festival?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's why one of the reasons I think it's great to have somebody in your life that makes a big deal for you.
Yeah.
But there's also a point where, is it, are you being right-sized again?
Yeah. Right. I think it's one of those things too. It's like, if you're, and I've never been this person, but if you're one of those people that you get bent out of shape because people don't come to a birthday party, or, basically you become a bridezilla concept,
yeah.
like it's all about me and it's my day. And it's like, no, it's a day. It's to you, it's important. To everyone else, it's another day. I've explained that to people with anniversaries and birthdays before. It's like, to you, it's a huge deal. To everyone outside of that, it may be a big deal, but they also have other factors. Like the world will not end if I don't go celebrate your birthday. The world isn't on pause because it's your birthday, and if you think it is, get over yourself, because nobody else feels that way. Or very few do. If you have other people who also feel that way, then you're probably leading a cult. I don't know. It's, yeah. Like I said, I've never been that person though. It's like, what we tend to do in our group of friends is we tend to just invite people. And I'm for the most part to the point now that there's a couple, like if they weren't there, I'd be like, oh, wow. But other than that, if people show up, cool. If they don't, they had something else they had to do. I'm not losing sleep over it anymore, and, there's no, and I don't mean that to be negative or anything or cold or anything. It's just, that's just how life is at this point. It's like, like I said, on anything, it's just an easier way to go through it, because then you don't have any like hurt or rejection over it. It's just, all right, they had something else to do. Okay. But like you said, I also used to sit and look at, there's an episode of The Simpsons that kind of parallels this. It's where, Homer looks at, I forgot what birthday of his it is. And he basically looks at his life and is like, I'm worthless. Like at this age, he read a book on Thomas Edison and he's comparing himself to Edison. He's like, by the same age, Edison had like all these inventions and I've got nothing, basically I've done nothing in my life. And I used to kind of do the same kind of thing. To where I'd be like this year, I'd be like, wow, I'm turning 38. What have you done? Like, what, and this goes back to where we started with the, you are not your accomplishment, like that kind of a thing. And, I've gotten, so that was a big thing to get away from too. Cause I used to do that. Just like, you're going to be 38. Like right now I'd go, you're going to be 38. You're not working. You're living with your mom. What a loser, and I mean, I would just crush myself over it. And, part of the process is learning to not do that because it stinks. You're in a position that you're trying to work through right now. You're trying to be a better person. These are the things to focus on. You are trying. That's the number one thing. You are trying, like, do you realize how big of a step that is to a couple years ago to where I was just existing? There's a big difference in that, and recognizing that is a very big gift to give yourself because,
huge.
You've taken all that pressure off, a lot of that pressure off of your shoulders to, that you're a loser and you don't allow the depression to have that voice, so that's what I've been trying to focus on, the last couple of years is it's like, no, this isn't, you're not a loser. It's like, you've done this, other things in your life too. Like you've done things. It's not like you've done nothing your whole life even. Like you've done things, you'll do more things. Right now, you're just trying. You're working on you,
Yeah.
So.
Let's back to focusing on the journey.
Yes.
Rather than just getting overwhelmed with the finish line.
Yeah. Exactly. It really is. It's pulling the scope from the long term, pulling it to what's right in front of you, because it's what's important. Like the saying, I think we've brought it up on here countless times that, depression's looking at the past, anxiety's or I forgot, I'm wording it badly. I forgot what it is, but we're, what is it? That's going to bug me now. Depression is fixating on the past. Anxiety is fixating on the future. There we go. That's admittedly a very difficult thing when you have both. It's really difficult to not let one or the other, because they both like to punch at the same time. So yeah. Anyway, but overall, my week's been pretty good. Especially because I got my shirt today, and it's it hasn't been too bad. I actually walked down and got the mail today. So, and our mailbox is not like at the foot of a driveway. It's like I have to go out, walk around the block a little bit to where our mailboxes are. So, and usually I wouldn't bother. So I decided to do that today, and was outside I took a 10-minute walk basically. So yeah. But it was cool because it's a really nice day out. And while I was walking, at first I pulled my phone out. It's the first thing I did. Got to the bottom of the steps, boom, pulled my phone out, start walking, and I was like, no, I'm gonna put my phone in my pocket and I'm just gonna walk for this time. And and I did. I just head up instead of down. Yeah. And well, not up, because it's not like I'm staring at the sun or something, but you know what I'm saying. I'm looking forward and just walking around, and I actually saw somebody kind of an old friend that lives in the area here, and I haven't seen them in a while, so I talked to them for a minute, and I may not have done that if I had my head down. Yeah. And it was just nice. And then I got back in, and I was like, you know what, it was I stopped at one point, I pulled my phone back out of my pocket and took a picture, as I'll do sometimes when I'm, outside, just to prove to people I do go outside once in a while. But, it was something, again, it was like, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to force myself to put the phone away for 10 minutes and, just kind of soak that in. So.
Yeah, I did that earlier this evening too, where I was headed out, and I'm just like, no, I don't need this. I can leave this at home.
Yeah. It's amazing how, when, if you suggest that to somebody, how that's such a moment of panic. And and the worst part is, it isn't about what if there's an emergency. That's almost generally the second thing that's brought up, Yeah. Sometimes it is. It'll be, well, what if someone calls? And it's like, well, they'll call back, or they'll text or leave a message or whatever, But it's never, well, what if something happens to us? It's never that. It's always, you may say that, but generally the first thing in people's head is, I won't be able to check fill in the blank social media, Yeah.
Something goes bing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Pavlovian.
It is. Actually, I saw an article in some psychology news where they did a study on selfies and happiness.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, because we touched on from the aspect of the ego, and that kind of thing, but they were going at it from the standpoint of people that are feeling a little low self-esteem, with self-image, or they're feeling homesick, and how the taking a selfie has you look at yourself.
Yeah.
Typically, you want to put on your best face.
Yeah, true.
And then you put it up somewhere to socialize. Mm-hmm. And that those are all positive behaviors.
Yeah. That all those things you just said are the exact reasons that when I post selfies on Instagram or whatever, it's why I'll go in streaks where I'll try to do like every day, every other day, something like that, where I post one, because I genuinely, my self-esteem is low. And that's why it's like, and it isn't about if I put it up, I'll get likes or people, hey, looking good. It's not that. It's the fact that in my head, I saw myself as good enough to put myself out there for others. Like that kind of a thing. So, yeah. Actually, the caption on my picture today that I sent, because I sent it to some people on Snapchat, it was a picture of me and the sun was kind of coming in at an angle, and I was like, gorgeous. I was like, and the weather's not bad either. So, like I was doing like that kind of a thing. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. So that, like I said, that's the exact reason that I post. If it wasn't for that, I would probably rarely post selfies because I hate taking pictures of myself. I've never liked it, so, but that's part of what I've tried to change is, like there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's not like all the time. Like, here's 40 pictures of me today.
Yeah.
That's narcissistic.
Yeah. It's funny. I tend to do it when I've got like one of my dogs in the picture.
Mm-hmm. Well, sure. You have a reason then,
It's kind of fun.
Yeah. Right.
Like I rarely do them myself.
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying is your dog becomes your scapegoat then. Like, that's your reason. Oh, I want to show the dog off. Like me.
Yeah.
I took a picture of me in my new Batman shirt. Not the one I'm wearing right now, but the one I'll be, because I tried it on, so I took a picture and it's like, I got to post a picture of this because, and afterwards I was like, that's funny. I'm like, I'm hiding behind that shirt. Like I recognized it immediately. I was like, I'm hiding behind that. Like I'm posting a selfie, but I'm like, well, I want to show my shirt off. I mean, did I crop myself down to what was on the shirt? No, I'm in the picture. So yeah, it's totally about the shirt though.
I love that.
At least I own it, Like I said before, it's amazing how, for somebody with such low self-esteem, I'm incredibly narcissistic. That's why I've told people before, if I could get my esteem up, I'd be dangerous to the world, like supervillain dangerous. So it's probably for the best.
We're all safer this way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Count your blessings tonight when
That's
you go to sleep.
I do it for everyone else,
Yes, exactly.
I hate myself, to balance myself. Oh, man.
Otherwise we'd be dealing with a daily dose of Briceratops.
Terrible. It'd be the worst. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, here's my 60 photos of myself today from all the angles, blue steel through all of them,
Of course.
Oh man.
Good stuff.
I was reading something the other day about, kind of how the news affects people negatively. Because most people see the news as an outlet for negativity, like that most people feel like if I turn the news on, there's not going to be any good stories on there.
Yeah.
And, because it never really seems like there are, or if there is, it's like that one story at the end of the news, it's some uplifting story. Like NBC News last night, I think, had a story about a guy who's he's 90 years old and his wife's sick or something, like she can't work, and so he was selling like in like the old school like push cart ice cream carts, and he was selling like the frozen like bars and stuff like that. I don't mean like hand dipped or anything, but but still it was like somebody met the guy, they posted, they started a GoFundMe and raised like $300,000 basically. So this guy wouldn't have to work because he's like almost 90 years old. Mm-hmm. And, it's a tough racket for him to do. And I was like, when you hear stories like that, you always feel great because, it's like good because, you shouldn't have to work at 90. If you want to, go for it. Like if he were doing it because he liked seeing the faces of everyone as they enjoyed frozen treats, no harm, no foul, But it wasn't that. He was doing it because he had bills to pay and that's something he could do, which really makes you feel like a piece of garbage if you are like me, but no, I'm kidding. No, it was, but it was a cool story to go off the air with, like, cause they leave it and you're like, oh, right. And that's cool. People, from all over the world threw money to try to change this guy's life. That's cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
And I was reading something the other day about stuff, and they pointed out a website called goodnewsnetwork.org. And the whole point of this is to just deliver good news to people. And by good news, I don't mean like various slants or whatever and stuff, but it's more of like okay, they have a story about EpiPens on there. The only news story I've seen on the EpiPens is how they're ridiculously overcosted. You know, how the price has gone way up and all this, but there hasn't really been much on the other side. This one, they have a story on there about how alternatives to EpiPens will cost less than $100. It's kind of the same story, but reframed, you know, and I was looking through the site today a little bit, and, you know, it's stories like a school bus driver calmly rescues 20 children from flaming vehicle. You know, it's just like all the kind of stories. Sri Lanka has been declared malaria free. You know, these are all legitimate stories that, you know, are out there. And it's like, you know, I know it's not necessarily current event, you know, but it's something that it's like, it might, if nothing else, people might listen to this, like, it might be a good balance to those things. Like, even if you do watch or read those news things and you're just like, man, because, you know, there's days I'll pull up the news app on my phone and I'll make, man, it's just, it weighs on you, you know, like, and I've had to be careful with depression that the more negativity I read, I take it on, you know, and so it's like, you know, sites like this might help somebody kind of balance that a little bit to maybe, even if you just jump on a site like this and you just read a couple of these stories that maybe are a little better, you know, to kind of keep your faith up in people and, you know, or just be hopeful going forward. Like Scotland test batteries that could revolutionize renewables, you know, those kind of stories can have massive effects, not even as much on this country, but in like third world countries. You know, to where batteries for things are ridiculous because they can't afford to keep replacing batteries on something. If a battery then can last for, you know, maybe that technology can be turned into bigger, you know, form batteries that could power things or, you know, we've talked about that before when you've done your, you've brought science stories, you know, how sometimes little breakthroughs lead to massive breakthroughs. So, you know, it's, anyway. Like I said, I just, you know, it was goodnewsnetwork.org. I just kind of wanted to bring it up and, you know, might be something.
It's kind of interesting, like you talked about it. It's not always going to be timely because it's not when the horrific thing happens. Yes. It might be when everything gets resolved and it's not so bad anymore.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
and that's still cool too.
Yeah, and you know, they have different sections on the site, you know, USA, World, Earth, Health, Business, Science, you know, Newswire. They've got, you know, culture ones for, you know, arts and leisure, sports, celebrities, you know, so it's not just whatever. You can kind of look around on the site and you might find, you know, something you're interested in. Or like I said, you know, maybe it's just something that like you jump on and, you know, before you go to bed, maybe you read a couple stories on this instead, you know, and kind of end your night on a positive spin because maybe that mindset will help you relax as you go to bed because you're not like the world sucks, politics, this, you know, like you maybe, you know, maybe you read about batteries or you read about some, you know, the EpiPens thing or, you know, something and you're just like, you know, maybe there's, you know, things will turn around here. So, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, me too. And I've, you know, cause I'm a person who reads new stuff all the time and I've just grown so tired of how I know this isn't all the news and a lot of the stuff that ends up on the news is not really news. You know, it's like, this doesn't impact people really. Like, I don't need to see stuff about the royal family or the Kardashians or, you know, these kind of things. Like, you know, you know, I'd much rather hear stories about, you know, there's one manatees displaced by hurricane or rescued from golf course pond. You know, I'd rather hear that story, you know, like give me something that's a little better for the world. Like that makes me feel like there was a reason that you sent someone to cover it.
So true.
You know, anyway, enough of my soapbox in there, but, all right. I think that's a pretty good spot to stop. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, we're over an hour and all that. So, yeah, you know what I didn't do? I didn't pull up the links and stuff that I read at this part of the show. Oh, no. They're there. I guess, you know, this is where I mentioned to you to, you know, if you want to continue the conversation with us, you can visit our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. You can email us at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. Jen can be reached on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life, and that's Jen with a G. Henno, how about you?
Find me on Twitter at Ida Henno. You can find me on Facebook, Henno Heiter. And I noticed on our Facebook group there was I approved somebody into the group, so welcome.
Mm-hmm. You know what's funny about that is I thought I had that set to where anyone could join. I'm going to have to check again because I thought I had it to where, because, there's no reason to turn people away at this point.
No.
At some point, if it becomes a problem, then yes. But right now, we haven't seen any reason that moderation is necessary. So
yeah.
It's weird, though, because I swear I changed that. So I'm going to have to look that up again. I'll try to remember to do it here. Yeah, the Facebook group, as Henno just mentioned, is at facebook.com/groups/crazylifepodcast. And I'm trying to remember to post stuff over there. I posted a really good video, I think, of, I mentioned on the show last week of Louis C.K. talking about, actually he talks about cell phones and sadness and how one has contributed to the other, which I thought was a really great talk. It was from when he was on Conan one time. Let's see, you can reach the show, also see when we post new episodes and such at The Crazy Life Pod on Twitter. You can find me at Stunami. You can find the other podcast that I'm on, which is called Salty Language, and it's not safe for work. But you can find us on Twitter at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. And let's see, I'm forgetting something. Oh, duh. We're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. And again, if you want to, you can hear our audio on YouTube. So if you're a person who prefers using like the YouTube app over podcasting apps or whatever, you can find us on YouTube. The link's in the show notes. Unfortunately, there's no custom URL yet because it's, they have rules. So until we meet those things, we can't have a customized one. But if you hit me up on Twitter or something like that, I can always send you the link if you want it. Cause I don't know if you just type in Crazy Life or Crazy Life Podcast. I don't know, what'll happen on YouTube. It'll explode, No, but also again, please share our show with your friends. If you have time, swing by iTunes and leave us a review or, however you listen to us, iTunes, Stitcher, whatever it is, please share. Give us a thumbs up, whatever, app, does, cause that all helps us, get found by other people. And, one thing I haven't mentioned in a long time on here is anyone listening, if you happen to be one of those people who kind of scrub through the intro, stuff, go back and listen to it. Cause Henno wrote a really cool song for the podcast. And, so go check that out. Cause it's a good, fun song and very appropriate. Not as appropriate as the other one, but you
can find that on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Monkey Productions.
Perfect. I think that's all the links. So,
to social anxiety.
Yeah. Love it. Also, I want to remind everybody that, the show shouldn't be used as a substitute for therapy. We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals. We're just, a few people sharing our experiences and talking about how life's affected us. So if you need help, please seek it out. Really, if you listen, you can tell from me and Henno both, and when Jen's on here, also that, our lives really have been changed by seeking help. And stuff, so, like I said, please don't put it off. You're not alone. Go, check into help because there's definitely help out there. We've got some links over on the Facebook group also. If you need, help finding a therapist or whatever, hit me up. I can send you a list or try to help you with that. And also, the last thing is, if you're feeling suicidal or planning suicide or, whatever, just please don't act on that. Talk to somebody in your support group or support system or, friends, family, that kind of thing, or call, the suicide prevention hotline number, or, if you're at that stage, call 911, tell them you're having a mental health emergency. Sometimes insurance cards have a number on the back for mental health help. just whatever it is. If you're feeling that way, reach out to someone. There's help for you. It's out there, and, nobody wants you to kill yourself. So, please do not act on these things. Well, don't act negatively. Act on them, but don't act negatively on them. Act by contacting someone else and saying, I need help. Cause, this is, World Suicide Prevention Hotline. I'm so used to saying that right there. World Suicide Prevention Month. Great. And actually I said last thing before, but I lied. Another thing is, reach out to your friends. Ask them how they're doing. Even if they're not a person who you think or know has a mental health issue, just reach out, ask them how they're doing, make sure they're okay. You never know when that reaching out could turn into, as Heno mentioned, I don't remember how many episodes ago, about a guy he worked with. He reached out to him, and it turned out that the guy was in a really bad place and just really needed someone to talk to, so just, like I said, reach out, touch base with people, and just make sure that they know that you're there for them, and, that you love them and everything else. So there, I think that's all my stuff.
Nice.
Yep. So, I think that's it. Heno, you want to take us out of here?
Oh, yeah. And like Jen always tells us, wiggle those toes and keep breathing.